Good morning. So my name is Antoine Pastor, and I'm going to talk to you about games for your ears or how to make an audio game. So I'm working in a company called Something Else. We're based in London, and we make a lot of different things from TV to radio shows and, of course, games. And over the last 5 years, we've released 4 audio games, including Papa Sangre and Audio Defense, which I'm going to talk about today. So in case you don't know what an audio game looks like, here is a screenshot of Papa Sangre 2. So that's level 7 when you're stuck in a submarine and you can hear radioactive leaks all around you. And this is a screenshot of level 8 where you're in a zoo surrounded by weird animals. And you can see that there's not much difference between these two screenshots because all the difference happens in your headphones, and you can hear 3D sounds in your earphones. And basically your device is just a controller and you don't even need to look at it. But as I've told you already, I'm mainly going to talk about audio defense today, and to explain it more briefly, I'm going to show you the trailer because that's probably the best thing to show. So here we go.
Here comes the new generation of a zombie shooter. The lowest resolution zombies you've ever seen, and that you aren't gonna see because this game has no graphics. Put your headphones on. There are zombies. You can hear them, but you can't see them. Turn carefully until the zombie sound is in front of you. Come on, shoot him! What are you waiting for? Yeah! You're surrounded. Yeah! Choose your weapons.
Micro SMG. Solid cannon.
Yeah!
So how does this work? Because we've got nothing on screen, you need a very accurate way to represent the sound around you. And to do this, we're using the Papa engine, which is an engine we've made in-house and we are distributing. And it lets us recreate a 3D sound environment around the player. And it's basically so accurate that when you close your eyes, you can say exactly where a sound is coming from. And it's not only oh, it's coming from my right or my left. You can say it's coming exactly from there, for example. So to do this, we're using a technology called HRTF, and it's basically a function that describes how a sound is coming to your ear. So in that case, you can see that the distance between the sound and your left ear is a bit longer than the distance between the sound and your right ear. And that's basically what that function describes. And we've got 188 of these functions to describe the sounds all around the player. And whenever we need to spatialize a sound in the game, we just need to pick the right function in the database. So for example, when we need to spatialize a zombie at this position, we will take the HRTF function for angle 345 and apply it to the sound. And that's how we turn a flat mono sound into a 3D sound. But technology isn't everything, and what really matters when you play a game is the gameplay. And for our first 3 games, we've relied mainly on narrative. So in all of these games, you had a narrator that would help you go through the levels. And for example, in Papa Sangre 2, it was Sean Bean, the actor from Game of Thrones. And he would explain to you what the level is like and what you needed to do. So the pace of the game would be quite slow because you really needed to understand what you have to do, But on the other hand, that would let us create some very rich environments. So I've talked to you about like the submarine, but we also have a house on fire or things like that. And in these environments, what you needed to do was to take a few steps, listen to your environment, like take a clue of what your next objective was. So for example, try to listen for the door and the enemies and try to get the patrol of the enemy, and then take a few steps to the door, then listen again and move again. So the pace of the game was quite slow. And when we've built audio defense, we've tried to make a completely different game. So if we take a look at the game design, we will see that we've tried to completely change these 4 key points. So in Papa Sangre, I told you it was really important to listen and move. But in audio defense, we've chosen to completely get rid of the ability for the player to move, because we figured out that it was actually really hard for the player to figure out where they are in a room, but they could very precisely say where the sound were around them. So we've chosen to use that as the main game mechanic. And as a consequence, the game is really easy to play, and really anyone can just pick a device and play. And also, we wanted to make a game that was much more of an arcade game and fun to play. So we got rid of the slow pace, and instead of that, we've packed a lot of action into audio defense. And that's why we pretty much got rid of all the narrative to focus really on the shooting. And we also got rid of creating very rich environments, and instead of that, we focused all the efforts of the sound design in creating a very broad range of enemies. So we've got 15 different enemies with very specific behaviors and way to attack the player. And one important thing when building audio game is the interface, or I should say the lack of interface. So if you look at a normal zombie shooter on the App Store, like Dead Trigger 2, you can see that you've got a lot of stuff going on the screen. So you've got 5 different buttons, a mini-map, a live bar, your score, the current weapons, how many bullets you've got left, all that sort of stuff. In audio defense, the only thing you see when you play is this. And that's it. So you've got no feedback at all on where your enemies are, because that all happens through 3D sounds in your headphones. And the only thing you see is the current gun you've got equipped and those red lines that are some feedback about the way you're looking at. So when you move, you will see these red lines moving, but they don't give you any feedback on where your enemies are. And then you just swipe up to change weapons, swipe down to reload, and shake your device to attack with your melee weapon, and that's it. And it's actually so easy to play that you can play without looking at the screen. And when we demo the game in some events, we like to take that big cardboard box with us, and it's full of foam to isolate you from the sound of the outside. And actually, when you put it, you can't see anything, you can't even see the screen, but people can still play. And it's actually amazing to see that people discover that they can play without looking at the screen, and they usually really enjoy it because it's a brand new experience to them. But because we have no interface, you get that the sound design is very, very important. And in a zombie game, the most important thing is the zombie sound, of course. So for each enemy, we've got a large panel of sounds. So for example, when it appears, it will make a specific sound like this one. Can you put the volume up, please? And then when it moves towards you, you will hear it moving. So you hear the footsteps and the moaning. And then when it's really close, you can hear it being more aggressive, like that. And if you don't kill it when it's being aggressive, of course, it will attack you, and then it's game over for you. And as I've told you already, we don't have a live bar in our game, so we had to find a way to represent danger to the player. And what we've chosen to use is your heartbeat. So when you hear your heart beating, it means that a zombie is really close to you and that you've got to get rid of it, like that. So the zombie is approaching, and you start hearing your heartbeat. And because you didn't kill it, well, you're dead. And then on the game over screen, you hear that sort of hospital sound, and you've got an opportunity to try again. And because it's a zombie shooter, weapons are very, very important. And we've got loads of different weapons in that game. And they're giving you feedback about how well you're doing. So if you're shooting, you will hear the sound of your gun. But if you're hearing and hitting your target, you will hear a blood splatter. So that's a very subtle difference, like that. And if you're shooting your enemy and killing it, the blood splatter will sound much more gore, like this. And on top of that, you will also hear the moaning of the zombie you're shooting, because there are different kinds of zombies, and you want to know which one you've been shooting at. So you will hear something like that. And if you've been lucky enough to kill it, you will hear the zombie falling on the floor, like this. And that's a sign that you can stop shooting at the zombie and focus on another zombie somewhere else. And because we've chosen not to show on the screen how many bullets you've got left, we had to come up with another system. So when you're shooting with your micro SMG, you will hear this. But when you're almost running out of bullets, the sound will be slightly different, like that. And that's actually the sign that you need to reload, otherwise you're going to run out of bullets. And sound is your ally, but sound can also be your enemy, and not only because zombies have sounds, but also because we love to throw stuff at players to challenge them. So for example, when you're fighting zombies, there can be a jukebox that will appear in the arena for no reason, and it will cover the sound of the zombies, so you really want to shoot at that jukebox to get rid of it and be able to focus on the zombies. And you can also have a thunderstorm, and basically, when you hear that sound, it's the same. It covers the sound of the zombie, and for a few seconds, you can't really say where they are anymore. But my favorite one is when an explosion happens really close to you. You got that very annoying, high-pitched sound. And on top of that, all the sound of the zombies get really, really reverby, making it much, much harder to guess where they are. So that's it for the sound design. And I'm now going to talk about the balance. So in our previous game, Papa Sangre, we realized that a lot of players dropped after level 5. So if you look at the green bars, that's how many players got through each level. And you can see that not a lot of players made it to level 7. And that's a real shame, because we've put a lot of effort in making level 6 to 18. That's where most of the action takes part, like that submarine, the burning house, the zoo. And the tutorial happened in much emptier room. So it's a real shame that people dropped the game before they got to experience what we wanted them to experience. So in audio defense, we've made the tutorial levels much shorter and much easier to play. And you can see that much more players got to play our levels 5 to 10 because that tutorial is really short. And when they are done with the tutorial, they got into the main game loop, which is buying weapons, going into the arena, getting some coins, buying better weapons, upgrading them, and scoring better in the arena. And for the first time in our games, we've been able to make leaderboards, so both on Twitter and on the Game Center. And as you can see, if you look at our Twitter feed, some players are very, very committed to the game. And at the bottom of the list, you can see someone who has killed 281 zombies, when my best score is probably something around 40 or something like that. And another thing you can see on that picture is that a lot of our followers don't have a profile picture, and that's because they are blind and they don't need a profile picture. And blind players are a very, very important part of our audience. And we take a lot of care in making our game accessible. So on this picture, you can see two versions of the same screen. So the one at the top is the normal version, but if we detect that our user is blind and has turned the screen reader on, then we create a brand new version of the screen. It's actually the same game in the App Store, but it's just detecting that the player has a screen reader. And we're using normal iOS stuff to display the screen in a much blind-friendly way. And in the same way, we've redone pretty much every screen of the game for blind players. But if you're interested in making game accessible, the next speak will talk much better than I do about it. So that's it for me. Thanks for your attention. And if you have any question, I'll be at the back.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Antoine.
Thank you.